How's it going, folks? Starting to finally get the aquaponics organised. It's only taken me nearly all of summer. I've got the beds in position. I've got the last bed cleaned out. This is actually the tray here. I've got the cradles in place made from the old IBC cage, and I'm just about to cut up the IBC, see if they fit in there, because they are a different skin or different makeup, the actual drum itself. So yeah, just playing around with a few bits and pieces, but I thought I'd bring you along and show you what I'm doing. As much as I'd like to reuse and recycle these beds, I'm not going to be using this old one as a media bed, maybe a floating raft. I did find that the little ridges in the bottom, it's just the style of the IBC that these guys were, having ridges in the side, they accumulated a lot of muck, and I found in a couple of spots in the two beds that were behind me here, they'd gone anaerobic, rather crappy smelling, shall we say. So I've decided not to use them as a media bed again. That's why I'm cutting up the new one, the one I'll show you in a minute. Nice flat sides, don't have to worry about any accumulation of waste down in there, nice water flow being a flat base. So we'll get to cutting up this IBC, and then we'll see if they fit in the cradles. Might shoot this film over the next couple of days over the weekend, mainly because I don't think I'll get it all sorted today. So anyway, we'll get to it, hey? So this is the IBC I'll be cutting up, and as you can see, she's got flat walls, so I don't have to worry about any solids collecting in the gutters along the bottom like the other bed. Normally what I've done before is I've pulled the actual IBC out of the cage, tried to mark it up using a builder's square. It can be a little bit clumsy, and you don't always get the right angles and when you're trying to use the square, and you can end up with a bit of a wonky line. So what I thought I'd do this time is use the cage as a guideline. It's in there fairly tight in the cage itself, so I think it'll make for a pretty accurate cut. Now with the IBCs, I'm not cutting in half this way and using top and bottom. I'm actually going to be cutting them up this way on their side, so that way I'll end up with a solid base, no hole in it. I can put my uniseal or my bulkhead fitting straight through it. So the easiest way to mark this up, I figure, is to use these bars. As you can see down here, this bar comes very close to where it rolls over to the tap assembly. So all I'm going to do is grab my marking pen and make a line up this bar here, and I'll do that on the other side as well. Now, because of the way these IBCs are made, these bars at the front here are a different distance from the edge of the cage as the ones at the back. So what I'm pretty much going to do is just lift the tank out itself, spin it round, drop it back in here, and then use these bars again to rule up the lines on the back. So we have our lines down the sides of the IBC. I've just flipped it over, so this is the base. Now what I have to do is try and join these lines up with the ones on the other side. It's easy enough to do because I got my trusty old slat from a Venetian blind. It's just one we took out because the blind was too long for our window. So all I have to do is just line up these marks on the side here and bring the blind around the top. There we go, I'd say it's roughly there. And then I can do the same on the other side and match up these marks. Now to cut these guys, all I do is use a jigsaw. I use a pretty rough looking blade on it. It's a timber blade. You could use a metal cutting blade with a finer tooth, but I find this works really well. Now you can use a hole, drill a hole in here to start the blade off, but I've had a bit of experience with the barrels and that, so I don't worry about that now. All I do is generally gently ease the blade into it, so here we go. So the next job to do is just to remove all these burrs, and yes, I should have put a tarp down, but I don't have one spare at the moment. So what I'm going to be doing is just scraping this off into the other grow bed that the camera is sitting in. It's just as easy as doing that, dragging your blade, utility blade, across it, and then they just come off all nice and easy. You can buy special deburring tools as well. I find, you know, a blade like this does a good job, so I'm just going to run around these grow beds and tidy them up. So there you go, folks, the beds are cut and in place. A little bit different to how it was laid out at the start of the clip. Bianca came down yesterday afternoon and we had a bit of a talk about the layout of the whole system, planning for when the fish farm's dismantled after we've harvested some fish from that, and yeah, adding some more grow beds around the place. So what we've decided to do is obviously move this back into a similar position as it was before. The front of these beds is now in line with the base of the sump tank there. It's not coming out an extra foot, foot and a half and encroaching on the walkway. So pretty happy with that. We've still got enough room at the back to get around. I could actually fit a wheelbarrow behind there if I wanted to, so more than enough room. The space over the back there is going to have something else set up in it, but I'll probably get to that next weekend. I'm pretty much all just focusing on finishing these beds off. Now for the IBCs themselves, I actually had to cut up the cage they were in too, mainly because the skin of this IBC, or these grow beds, didn't fit in the old cages. They were a little bit too narrow. As you can see here though, the side of the cage on this side is lower and it's higher on the other, so that just goes to show you when I was marking this out with the texture pen before, if I'd marked at that line there I would have ended up with a bit of a slopey grow bed, just to help explain that. They have been covered with the same reflective material as the fish farm has, mainly because I have it. It's free, I'm just reusing a resource here. What I would like to do eventually though is to clad the outside maybe with some reclaimed pallets or something along those lines, but for now I'm pretty happy with just gluing this stuff on. The foil was actually stuck on with a hot glue gun. It was a lot better and easier to do than trying to paint, get paint to stick to HDPE2 plastic. I've tried silicone as well to try and on these IBCs to block holes and whatnot, and I found the hot glue just stuck to it a little bit better. Down this end here I've got the old bar that was on the end of the old cage, and I've pretty much all screwed it from the back, a couple of holes zapped through there with some 316 stainless screws, and that's going to stop this grow bed from bulging out once some water's added. The way they're going to be set up is this bed will be a DWC or deep water culture floating raft, and the rear one will be a media bed, which will be in a flood and drain media bed run on a bell siphon. So I'm pretty happy with the way they run. So the drain holes for the grow beds have already been cut. For both holes what I've done is cut a 44mm hole or an 1.5-inch hole, just with a hole saw. I like to start it off forwards and then reverse the cut for the actual hole itself. It just gives you a nicer, cleaner cut around the edge of the hole, a lot less swarf to tidy up. The reason I've made it a little bit larger is because I want to put a uniseal, or I may want to put a uniseal in this bed in particular in the future, and that far bed is actually going to have a uniseal put through it. So this hole now can take a uniseal, but it's also small enough that I can fit in this 25mm or 1-inch bulkhead fitting as well, which is what I'm going with this one. I've got the attachments for the standpipe and the bell siphon already sussed out for this, so I'm just going to stick with it. So I'll just toss him over for there. Now this one here is really easy. I'm just going to throw the bulkhead fitting through, tighten it up. I've actually already done a clip showing you how I set up that one over there, so check that out if you want a more in-depth look at it. I might as well put this drain in now, but before I do I just wanted to show you on the shroud here. The holes in the shroud have been made a lot larger. These are the old holes, or the size holes they were previously. I've just stretched them out a bit, also added in a lot more, and I've drilled my extra holes in the base cap here. This is the cap that the bulkhead fitting sits in. Just keeps it nice in place, stops it from moving around and clay balls getting in there and stuffing up your drain. As you can see, I've got a mark there to line up and 2 marks on the other side coming down onto the cap, just so those holes down the base there all line up nicely. So for the standpipe, it's similar to the other one that I did the clip on. It's basically a threaded filling that goes inside the bulkhead, then a 1-inch to 3/4 inch reducer in there, 1-inch to 3/4 inches 25mm to 20mm, then just a 20mm standpipe, and then I've got a 20 to 25mm coupling, expander coupling there. So basically what that means is a greater deal of water will cascade in over the top of this smaller diameter pipe. It will force the siphon to initiate a lot quicker. So this now just pretty much all gets screwed into place, and I will be changing the height of the standpipe because this isn't all finished yet. Also too, the bell, I'll just grab one from the other one. I haven't made the bell up as of yet, but it'll pretty much all look the same as this. A piece of 65mm stormwater drain with a cap on the top, and some little legs cut in the bottom for the water to go through. So this is the base of the bulkhead fitting, and on this I've waxed some plumber's tape just to give it a watertight seal, and I'm just putting this threaded elbow on. This will pretty much be the fitting that takes the water from the grow bed back to the sump tank. That's a nice firm seal, so just position him that way, and then into that we'll move the camera back. Now all I need to do is put in my drain pipe, and away we go. I might pretty much all just put a little bit of a 45 in there, that'll just angle it down into the sump tank itself. Yeah, give it a bit of a jet spray. So, and that's pretty much all it. And luckily enough, I finished before the other siphon started. So I've knocked up a little bell. Actually, just need to glue the cap on tonight. And I've also cut down the shroud so it's at the right size. There you go, pop them in, make sure all the marks meet up. And the old end cap from the other shroud just goes straight over the top, and away we go. Now all I need to do is to move the clay into here, so we'll get to that quickly, and hopefully I'll have at least this bed finished by tonight. So there you go folks, we have it all set up, and as you can see we have media in the far bed. Plans have been changed, but I'll show you the new setup in a minute. This bed's also been planted out and the hose has been hooked up. It's been running for about a week now. We just had a lot of rain this week, so I couldn't finish off the clip. In this bed I've just planted out a couple of basil there, a dwarf tomato there and over the end, a couple of parsley, capsicum or sweet pepper that we've saved, and some thyme, and the red vein sorrel, it got rescued and planted back out in there. I've just got everything in root pouches at the moment, mainly because I want to try and contain the root balls. Some roots will grow through the root pouches, but yeah, I'm not too worried about that. It's just a bit of an experiment to see how it goes. Over on this side here we have the Dutch barrels. They've been set up, brought around here. Thanks Dad for giving me the lift. Rather heavy, these suckers. They've just been plumbed in with the 1" or 25mm line, both barrel on an individual line that runs back into the sump tank. So that's all sorted. I'm very happy with the way that's going. The poor Kangkong just over there got battered around when it got moved, but it looks to be doing alright. The plumbing. Actually, I'll give you a look at this other bed and then we'll go around for a look at the plumbing. So this bed here is just running as a constant flow at the moment. I need to buy a proper cap to put over the shroud over there. So the idea behind this one is I want to bury some root pouches probably about 50mm or 2 inches down into the gravel, just so the water just hits the bottom of the root pouch, and then I'll have some sand in the base of them and it can wick the water up into a potting mix or a compost mix, and see if we can get the best of both worlds. Some nutrients and water from the aquaponics plus all the other bits and pieces from the soil bags. Just mucking around, see how it goes. Maybe a couple of coconut coir bags in there. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way it's going. I did actually have to buy a couple more bags of clay just to top this one up, because I forgot I used a whole heap over there in those barrels. So quick walk around here. Just over here is where I've decided to put the deep water culture bed. Just a little bit more room to move around there, and I can create a bit of a walkway at the back to get to the radial flow bio and the first sump tank over there. So that's not set up, it's just sort of just been put in place to see how it sort of feels in the area. The next job that needs to be done is this flow back from the sump tank over there to the major sump tank. So that's going to happen on another day. So what we have here is the pump and the sump down in there, 10,000 litre an hour jobby. We've got two lines coming out under pressure. That one down there actually turns back that way and goes up to the Venturi and the bio and the two fish tanks. This line here under pressure goes out to the grow beds. It's basically a split flow system, or Paul Van on a nice little post called it a Homo sapien modern man system. We have a valve here and also a nut and tail. This is basically so I can turn off the flow and work on the line, and also I've got an option to undo the hose and pull it out and do whatever. So we'll follow this line around. So from that valve and that nut and tail, it goes around here to the first of two T's. This T here splits the flow off to the beds that way, and also goes up to the Dutch barrels here. Another nut and tail there, so I can disconnect it from the system and the valve. I've done a clip on that system, so I won't run through that now, how it's all worked out. Just around the corner we have another T with a riser coming up with a valve again, just to put the flow into this bed here. And around the corner here we have another nut and tail just down in there. That's just basically so that section of the pipework out to the other two new beds can be basically cut off, that pipework taken out, and I can just put an end cap on there to stop the flow. I couldn't afford another tap, so it's pretty basic. We'll go around the other side and I'll show you how it's plumbed up around there. So we have the pipework just underneath this bed here. It comes up and it goes into a T where it's split between the two beds, and then the same story, just a 1 inch valve there and another one here, and then the pipe goes up to the inflow into the beds themselves. So on the whole, really no complaints on the way it's been set up. Those barrels have fit in nicely over there, and I think the addition of the deep water culture bed there, it will be a bonus. I can easily put in another T from the line out from the pump and flow it down there, or I can break into the line under this bed here and run it along the ground and then up over there. I've got the option of burying it under the gravel and all sorts of things, so that won't be too hard to plumb in, and you'll see that at a later date. But yeah, I'm pretty chuffed with the way it's all working out at the moment. So there you go folks, it's taken me 3 weeks to get here, but the clip is done. I'm really happy with the layout of the system now, with the Dutch buckets behind me and that floating raft bed. Hopefully, fingers crossed, if I can find some extruded styrofoam, should be up in the next week or two. The plumbing, I didn't really want to get too in depth into the plumbing coming from the pump, mainly because that bilge hose, that will be replaced in the near future. Once the fish farm's finished with, like I said before, we'll be extending grow beds up that way. The fish, haven't shown you the fish in this clip. I'll pop up there in a minute and toss a bit of feed in and see if we can have a bit of a look at them. So I'll pretty much will leave it there. If you do have any comments, questions or suggestions, pop them in the comments section below and I will get back to you where I can. Other than that, don't forget to check out the other aquaculture clips and aquaponic clips we have in the playlist, and you can also suss out our Facebook and Instagram feed if you want updates during the week, just photos of things like chickens and feeders and grasshoppers, a lot of grasshoppers. But other than that, I will leave it there. Hope everyone's well and happy, and I shall catch you next clip. Cheers folks! Bit hard to feed fish, film and hold the bowl in the water at the same time, but these are the silver perch. These guys we got last April, so they're roughly around about 10 months old, 11 months old. Nowhere near the size of the jades in the aquaculture, but you know, they are a slower growing fish. These guys are a bit easier to see, they're sort of hiding up the back there, but they're the large jades. They're well over 2 years old now. So some of these guys will be pushing a kilo, 2 pounds easy. They're just pretty much all feeding the system with their waste at the moment, and eventually some of the fish from the fish farm will end up in here. We'll end up putting these guys on the barbecue. So there you go folks, have a great one and I'll catch you next time. Cheers!